Let's dive right into this explainer and demystify how top-tier organizations actually solve their most complex, stubborn operational problems. Look, if you work in operations, quality, or continuous improvement, you know that facing a critical defect or a massive customer complaint is just inevitable. It's going to happen. But how you respond to it, that's exactly what separates the industry leaders from everybody else. When things go wrong, do you just grab a bucket of water, or do you take the time to redesign the plumbing? Today, we're opening up the problem-solving tool belt to look at the real heavy hitters, 8D, Six Sigma DMAIC, and the highly effective QC story methodology. Now, what's really fascinating about this question is that failure almost never stems from a lack of effort. When a defect escapes, you've probably seen it. Teams scramble, they work late, they run a million different tests. So why on earth do the exact same problems keep creeping back a month later? Well, it's all about a lack of alignment. This quote hits the nail right on the head. Organizations fail because they pick the completely wrong tool for the job, or they take a perfectly good tool and use it in the absolute wrong way. Applying a massive, broad methodology to a super specific, urgent crisis, or vice versa, is just a recipe for repeat defects. And make no mistake, the cost of poor quality, like scrapped parts, wasted hours, warranty claims, that literally eats a massive chunk of an organization's revenue through internal waste and external frustration. Okay, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to cover 1. The problem-solving dilemma, 2. Unpacking the 8D methodology, 3. Exploring Six Sigma DMAIC, 4. Comparing the methodologies, 5. Limitations and common pitfalls, and finally, 6. Choosing the right tool. Section 1. The problem-solving dilemma, fighting fires versus rebuilding the foundation. Moving right along to Section 2, unpacking the 8D methodology, the rapid containment strategy. Let's pull that first major tool right out of the belt. So 8D originated way back in 1987. It started out as the team-oriented problem-solving manual at Ford Motor Company, and it was built out of sheer absolute necessity. The executives there noticed that engineering and manufacturing were basically working in complete silos. So 8D was designed to be your absolute first responder when a problem is actively bleeding into your customer base. It is a highly structured, documented approach that's actually mandated today across automotive, aerospace, and electronics manufacturing. As you can guess, 8D walks a team through 8 sequential disciplines. But the absolute make or break point here is D3, interim containment action. In industries like automotive, you're usually expected to have D3 fully in place within 24 hours of a complaint. You are slapping a Band-Aid containment firewall on the issue immediately. You quarantine inventory, you sort parts, you add temporary inspections. You have to protect the customer right now before you even begin to hunt for the actual root cause in step D4. And visualizing step D4 really shows you the depth of the analysis required. D4 is actually often called the black box of AD. Using the 5 whys, you aren't just pinpointing why the specific technical failure occurred. That's only half the battle. You are also actively hunting for the escape point, meaning why did your quality assurance system completely fail to detect the issue in the first place? You literally have to solve both, or your AD effort is effectively useless. Section 3. Exploring Six Sigma DMAIC, the data-driven foundation. Let's shift gears away from the rapid response of 8D. Think of DMAIT not as a firefighter running into a burning building, but as an engineer methodically, carefully rebuilding the very foundation of the building so fires simply do not start in the first place. DMAIC is the absolute heart of Six Sigma. It's a highly analytical, project-driven management approach that seeks to eliminate the ultimate villain of all manufacturing, which is process variation. Unlike the rapid containment of 8D, DMAIC is a strictly sequential flow that demands robust, undeniable data collection before any improvements are even brainstormed. You define the problem, measure current performance with real-world data, analyze for statistical root causes using tools like ANOVA, improve the process, and finally, control it so it doesn't slide backward. You can backtrack if you need more data, for sure, but you never, ever guess. Now, while 8D and DMAIC are the true heavyweights, you've also got foundational cycles like PDCA and highly visual methodologies like QC story. Originating in Japan, QC story is actually brilliant for frontline workers. It uses a step-by-step narrative approach to solve problems and then share those exact improvements across the entire company. The tool belt is totally full, you just need to know what you're reaching for. Section 4. Comparing the methodologies, the showdown. So,
How do these giants actually stack up against each other?
Well, the expected outcomes are entirely different. 8D expects immediate containment and a fully protected customer, ending with a documented, auditable report on one specific failure. DMAIC, on the flip side, upgrades the entire underlying system for less variation, yielding higher quality over the long term. And QC Story? Its expected outcome is an empowered, educated frontline workforce that successfully resolves localized issues and shares those wins with everybody else. When we break down how these practically deploy, the differences are stark. 8D is for when the customer is already affected. You need a fast, multidisciplinary team to apply that Band-Aid immediately. DMAIC is a proactive, project-driven approach, usually led by a Six Sigma black belt over weeks or even months. And QC Story sits really nicely right in the middle. It's proactive, but it's led by the frontline operators themselves, focusing on localized daily management. Section 5. Limitations and Common Pitfalls, the reality check. Because no tool is perfect, right? The harsh reality of 8D is that it can fall apart incredibly fast if leadership isn't engaged. Team drama and defensiveness are massive enemies here. People naturally start pointing fingers when you dig into root causes. Also, if you treat D1, forming the team, as just administrative paperwork, you are literally guaranteeing failure. You need people with actual decision-making authority in that room. And the biggest pitfall? Misusing 8D as a simple one-page report that you rush to fill out in 24 hours just to get a client off your back. It takes real time to do it right. Conversely, DMAIC has its own heavy limitations. It can easily stall out just because of its intense requirement for statistical training. Let's be real, not everyone is a Six Sigma green belt or black belt. Plus, it demands a vast amount of time to collect reliable data, which makes it completely useless for an urgent customer-facing crisis. For a smaller startup, the overwhelming focus on big data can just feel like massive overkill. And if you opt for QC Story instead, the common limitation there is that teams often get way too focused on making a pretty presentation rather than verifying the actual root cause. Section 6. Choosing the right tool. The selection guide. Let's bring all of this together and figure out exactly how to select the right framework for your specific situation. The rule of thumb here is actually pretty straightforward. If you have safety issues, regulatory breaches, customer complaints, or unexpected test failures where you absolutely need a firewall today, 8D is your required tool. The customer's bleeding. You need to stop it right now and formally document how you're going to prevent that exact issue from ever happening again. But if you are looking to increase your overall yield, maybe reduce manufacturing cycle times and eliminate that chronic, low-level variation over the long haul, you absolutely need the discipline of DMAIC. You use this when you actually have the luxury of time to measure, analyze, and fundamentally improve the underlying process. Honestly, it's equally vital to recognize when to just leave the tools in the box. Do not waste your team's energy pulling an 8D for a unique one-off fluke that is never going to happen again. Don't use it for problems where you already know the solution. Just go implement the fix. And frankly, if there's a deep, systemic, cultural issue like incredibly low employee morale, no structured problem-solving worksheet is going to fix that. But hey, if your goal is to slowly build a culture of continuous improvement from the shop floor up, that's exactly when you select QC Story over the heavier frameworks. You've got to remember something absolutely crucial here. The 8D report and the DMAIC charter, they're just scaffolding. They do not magically solve the problem for you. A plausible cause is just not enough. True success comes from rigorous investigation and verifying that your solutions actually work. Can you turn the defect on and off at will? Does the data unequivocally prove the variation is gone? Verification is the ultimate goal here. I'll leave you with this thought as we wrap up today's explainer. Mastering frameworks like AD, DMAIC, or QC Story, memorizing all the acronyms and steps, honestly, that part is easy. But having the managerial discipline to pause, assess the situation, and deliberately deploy the correct tool for the job, that is exactly what separates the best organizations from the rest. Look at your next big operational headache and ask yourself, do you have the discipline to choose wisely?